Hi, and welcome to the Elicit live stream number 16. I'm Andreas, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Elicit. Elicit is an AI research assistant, and I am here doing random research to learn more about topics I'm interested in and also to learn more about how Elicit could be better. I, as usual, have no preparation. I'll have a time limit, 30 minutes, and we'll see how far we get in researching a topic that I don't know anything about. It's about learning in public, hopefully, as usual, not too public, so I didn't really tell anyone about the live stream. And also, as usual, if you watch this, feel free to suggest topics in the comments for the future. I was thinking today we could research happiness of animals. So that's something I'm wondering. I guess I'm currently a pescatarian, often wondering about, well, should I eat meat? Should I maybe even not eat fish? How happy are different animals? And I wonder, I'm kind of doubtful that the literature will have to have amazing things to say about it, but let's look into it and go. All right, so why don't we, as usual, just start very directly, how happy are different animals? And then as we learn more from the results, we can drill down and we can see if there's more specific queries that are helpful for us. Let's run this. I guess we're having an animal happiness assessment here. And I think I'm gonna once again start by just reading the summary here. Let's put on my glasses so I can see it even better. And then go from there. So, research on animal happiness has gained traction in recent years. Studies suggest animals can experience different emotions. There's a positive animal welfare movement, perhaps. Examining their typical level of affect, considering personality traits, physiological and behavioral indicators can be used to measure emotions. Actually, that's already one interesting thing we can flag for later, like how do you even measure happiness in animals? Okay, so I think there are a few directions that are suggested by this. So one is how we measure happiness. Then maybe there's a breakdown to specific animals that we could be talking about here, and then we might want to look more specifically at certain animals. And then given that there is a particular way of measuring happiness, we can then ask what are the metrics for different kinds of animals. So I'm gonna start by asking how can we measure happiness in animals? And I expect I'll get back a few papers that have different ways of measuring it, and because of that, I will ask, how does this paper, what ways to measure happiness in animals does this paper suggest? So I'm going to create this as a column, list specific ways to measure happiness, one per line. And I'm going to make it a high accuracy column so that we use tables if they're available in the paper. And then I'm also already going to load more because I care about something pretty exhaustive. Let's maximize this table, minimize the sidebar. Okay, this is a little bit too abstract, so I'm going to edit this column actually. One per line, be specific. Specifically describe what is being measured and how. Let's see if that's specific enough. Often it helps to give examples of what the intended results are like. But I'm going to see if we can get good enough results without having that here. All right, it seems pretty interesting. Okay, there's a lot of pretty interesting things here, I think. Measuring birds' activity and curiosity by recording the number of birds that approach a novel object. Qualitative assessment. Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Are they hot? How much do they move? Are they diseased? And you can like directly measure hormones or other internal factors. Oh, telomere length. You can measure. I guess there's measurement in the moment and measurement over time. So here, telomere length, I guess, is more of a cumulative measure where you check what's the integral of animals' happiness, basically. Whereas other measures are more like, are animals happy in the moment? So that's another interesting distinction. How much do they play? Heart rate. What's their heart rate? I guess a lot of these do rely on some analogy between humans and animals. So I think the analogy is, well, if a human is hungry or thirsty, then they're probably unhappy, and therefore, if we can measure that an animal is hungry or thirsty, therefore we conclude that it's unhappy. And similar with a lot of these others, like being hot or being diseased. So those are kind of proxy measures for happiness, and I think it's like pretty plausible that they have something to do with it. But of course, they're not direct measures of the state itself, and to some degree, I think it's impossible to measure the qualitative experience of happiness, or at least for our current scientific methods. Here, again, like some of these have subjective ratings, like zookeeper subjective ratings, who look at like primates and check if do they seem happy or not. Okay, so there's actually like a lot here, more maybe than I expected. And so what I'm gonna try to do next is gonna select all of these, or at least I'll select all of the ones that seem pretty interesting. Doesn't have as much. And then I will use the chat functionality to organize the contents a bit better. Interesting. Why is there no simple way of measuring animal welfare in an animal welfare journal? I'll leave a few out because chat is currently limited at most 8 papers. We're working on expanding that. This one is a little bit different, I think. Which other ones are we gonna leave out? One, I'll just leave out the last few here in the interest of time. Okay, and now chat with papers, organize the different ways to measure animal happiness in categories. Let's see what we get there. Okay, I think this could actually make a lot of sense. So we have behavioral measures where you look at how do animals behave, basically. Do they play? Do they explore? Do they make noises that we think are associated with happiness? Then there's physiological measures, heart rate, immune system function, neuroendocrine response, like hormones such as cortisol. Again, drawing the analogy with humans, where you're like, well, if a human is stressed, then they're less happy. And therefore we believe that if an animal similarly has these like indicators of stress, then we also believe it's probably less happy. It's cognitive measures. It's a little bit less clear. So the second one here is about basically the cognition of human observers. Like what do humans who look at those animals, what do they think about whether the animals are happy or not? And then this one, actually, I think this is probably a misclassification. I think judgment, this one should probably go under behavioral responses. It's like behavioral response to ambiguous stimuli, where you check, does the animal do something that indicates them being more optimistic? I don't know exactly what it is, but I assume it's something like you look at, like they get a box and like, do they approach it because they think there's food in it, or do they avoid it because they think there might be something scary in it? Okay, environmental measures, very indirect. Caretaker assessments. Yeah, I think this is actually very similar to, a little bit similar to the qualitative behavioral assessments here, where you have a human assessing what do they seem happy or not. And then there's brain activity. So that makes sense. I think that's actually a lot of progress already in terms of like how do we measure happiness. Now, I think there are a few directions we could go. We could explore how happy are different animals according to these different behavioral measures in different contexts. I think I actually first want to understand which of these are considered most reliable as indicators. And I think reliability here, I think I would guess, depends on to what extent is like a proxy versus to what extent is it a kind of very directly connected with happiness. Okay, that's not, I think that's not too helpful. So basically just listed like the first few here. We're basically ruling out neuroscientific measures and ruling out environmental and contextual measures. That makes sense. I would also have ruled out that one. So that may indicate that actually we just don't know very well. I think as I mentioned earlier, it's hard to know the qualitative experience of these animals, and so we have to draw analogies and use proxies. I think I'm gonna actually ask a slightly, facetious question next. Which animals are most happy? I think don't think there should be a clear answer here because again we can't quite tell. But maybe there's something about the different animals being in different contexts, and some contexts leading to these indicators scoring more highly. Okay, let's get these papers. Let's start a chat. Which animals are most happy? Yeah, the papers do not specify this. Good job, Elicit, not answering my question. In fact, I don't think there is an answer here. All right, so zooming out quickly, where are we at? We started by just asking how happy are different animals. Quickly realized it really matters how you measure happiness. Then got papers related to that and organized the different measures of happiness. I think there's actually a pretty good start of taxonomy here. And then I tried to see, well, can I just directly figure out which animals are most happy by asking that question. I think papers are, for a good reason, hesitant to specify that. So let's see if we can get at this more indirectly. Which animals exhibit the most play behavior? I think it's like pretty questionable to compare between animals and judge that a kind of animal that exhibits more play is happier, but I still am gonna try it. Okay, so we have primates. And yeah, interestingly here, fish, fractal, reptile, there are many animals discussed here. Let's get the papers, ask, based on these papers, which animals are most happy. Yeah, once again, the papers do probably not, based on these papers, which animals play the most. That's a more reasonable thing to ask, I think. Primates, and then mammals such as monkeys, apes, dogs, cats, elephant, otters, bears, crows, parrots. Create a ranked list by amount of play. Okay, so primates, dogs, cats, monkeys, apes, elephants, otters, bears, crows, kangaroos, rats. I think one, yeah, so you could ask, well, are these animals in fact happier than other animals that don't play as much? I think that would be very questionable. Probably don't believe it. But what I do believe is that for those animals, if you look at how much within a category an animal plays, that is plausibly reflective of how happy the animal is. Okay, I think at this point it might make sense to just zoom into a particular category and then ask more specifically about both that category and the happiness of animals in that category. Which one should we pick? I think I'm particularly interested in animals that humans have a lot of influence over. So it could either be pets or animals that humans consume for food. Maybe the food category is better because there's more question about the extent to which they're maybe really unhappy. How happy? Okay, let's say, how do we measure happiness in cows? And then once we know how we can measure happiness in cows, we can then think about how cows score along those metrics. Okay. Measurements of happiness in cows. Make a list and per line specifically describe how the measurement works. Once again, I'll turn on high accuracy mode so that we get responses that follow my instructions as closely as possible. Okay. Percentage of visible eye whites. Interesting. During stroking. Ear postures, mean heart rate, nasal temperature. A significant decrease in nasal temperature during stroking indicated a positive emotional state. Wow, I did not know that. This one is more behavioral. Vocalizations, heart rate. This is a whole grab bag of measures. Okay, I think I'm gonna do the same thing I did earlier, except now for cows, which is organize the measures of cow happiness in categories. And as before, we'll get some behavioral indicators and physiological indicators, and then the kind of environmental, situational factors. Yeah, so here we have the ones we saw earlier. Also, you can check out like how social are they, how much do they play, self-grooming. Maybe the thought here is, if a cow is like really unhappy, then it won't have any capacity to do self-grooming. Will be more in survival mode. Heart rate and HRV, cortisol. Okay. Let's see if these papers already talk about how cows in different contexts fare along these measures. E.g. pre-roaming. Interesting. Okay, so when cows are free roaming, pre-relaxed, half closed eyes, ears hung back. Feeding, resting, avoidance distance test. Stroking, positive low arousal state. It's very interesting that cows enjoy stroking so much, apparently. Let's quickly figure out what this avoidance distance test is. Okay, so a person approaches, and then this person, which the cow doesn't know, stands 2 meters in front of the cow, slowly approaches the cow, and then you check, when does the cow have an avoidance reaction? And maybe maybe the thought is, if the cow is more skittish, it might react sooner or more strongly. Or maybe you just check, how much arousal do they have? What are the physiological responses? Okay, let's once again zoom out and think about where we're at, so that we don't lose track of the overall story here. So we started out asking about happiness of different animals, and then went into looking at measures of happiness in general. Tried to figure out directly which animals are most happy. That didn't, the literature didn't immediately address that. So we looked at play behavior as an example, and just took a quick kind of ranking at like how much different animals play. More out of curiosity than because we think this is a ranking of how happy different animals are. And then to make things more concrete, we zoomed into cows as an example of an animal that we do care about. There are a lot of cows in the world, and humans affect them quite a lot. And thought about, well, what are different measures of happiness for cows, and get kind of similar, except more specific measures than for animals in general. I wonder, one thing that would be interesting to me is what % of the time do cows spend in a happy state? Let's It's maybe difficult to figure out directly. What percent happy state? But why not ask and see if we can get something interesting here. Yeah, I think these do not directly address this. But often, even if the papers don't directly address it, we can ask what facts do these papers discuss that could inform what percent of the time cows spend in a happy state. Okay, so here it is just cows tend to be happier according to visible eye whites when being stroked. So when they're being stroked, they're happier. I would guess that stroking is not a significant portion of the time the cow spends in its life. Nasal temperature, would have to measure that. Lying time. Cows typically spend around 13 hours lying down in normal conditions. So adequate lying time is a strong indicator of a happy state. Yeah, I think if the cow's not diseased or otherwise suffering, that seems reasonable. Cows that spend more time at the feed are likely to be in a better state of health and happier. So we are running low on time. Let's think about where I would go from here. I think if I wanted to truly understand how happy are particular cows, I would look at how is their day distributed over different kinds of activities, and in those activities, how happy do I think the cow would be, and then for thinking about how happy the cow is in those activities, I would once again go back to the different measures that we came up with earlier, namely the kind of various kinds of behavioral, physiological, etc. indicators. I would probably not actually get good data on all of this. I don't know if I could look up what fraction of the time for a particular cow it has a high or low heart rate. But I think I think maybe that's too pessimistic. Maybe there's actually animal welfare work that does measure those things. If not, I think there could actually be a pretty interesting project here on trying to just take a few individual cows, study them in great detail, measure all of these things, and then correlate those measures with various contextual factors so that you can then predict for a new cow how happy it is for a cow that's in a different context. All right. I think we got a lot of interesting knowledge about how to measure the happiness of animals today, and I hope you found it as interesting as I did. If you did, subscribe, hit the like button, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.